Okay, good evening, everyone. Tonight we're going to start off with some Bible study before we have a look at some Greek, because last time we were here, we didn't get to think about this Bible study thing, and I was very encouraged and very excited about this the last time when I was about to share it. I'd been doing some study that morning on John chapter 1 and noticed something that really made my eyes light up. Wow. So, anyway, Um, yeah, so let's read through this. This is again a bit of a taster of the helpfulness of using Greek in Bible study. So I'll start off with the first paragraph. Two of the benefits of learning Greek are one, being able to see the same Greek word but behind different English words in our Bibles, and two, being able to see different Greek words behind the same English words in our Bibles. So Greek gives us more accuracy in looking at our Bibles, but sometimes some Greek words are ambiguous, and we're going to see some examples of these things. So, Jake, perhaps if you could read this first heading about pruning and abiding. And if anybody doesn't understand anything there through my explanation not being clear, just jump in. I'm going to turn my mute off so it's not so I'm not disturbing you. But yeah, if you've got any questions, just ask them. Okay. Thanks, Jake.
Yep. So pruning and abiding in John 15. In John 15:2, Jesus says, "Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes that it may bear more fruit." Virtually every modern English Bible uses the word prunes here. The KJV uses purgeth, which is a little obscure. However, if we look at the Greek, the word is katheri from kathero, which means cleanse. Perhaps translators have used prune because it's hard to see how cleaning a vine will produce more fruit. But while pruning is probably what Jesus is actually talking about here, we miss something very important with this translation. In the very next verse, Jesus says, "You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you." The adjective used here for clean is katharos, the same root word as found in verse 2. Even more importantly, we remember from John 13 that Jesus washed the disciples' feet and said, "He who is bathed need only to wash his feet, but is completely clean," katharos, "and you are clean, but not all of you," John 13:10. The Lord's work of cleaning us from defilement, washing, John 13, is very important, and it's not until John 15 that he explains how this happens. The translation prunes breaks the connection between not only verses 2 and 3, but also the explanation Jesus gives for how we are to be more fruitful through his word.
Okay, let me jump in there just a second. We haven't met this word katharos yet, but when you studied English literature at high school, well, I did 30 or 40 years ago, we had a word that we were introduced to, and it was cathartic. Some speeches in some Shakespearean plays were described as cathartic. In other words, the character would bare their soul and they would speak directly to the audience, and they would basically try to absolve themselves, or they would confess and clean themselves. And this speech was said to be cathartic. This is the exact Greek word that uh, term we had in English comes from. Katharos is the adjective clean, and kathairo is the verb to clean. So you're following my argument here. The argument is this. In John chapter 13, Jesus says, "What I'm doing now, you don't understand, but you'll understand later." And the disciples are like, "Oh," they didn't understand much of what Jesus was speaking about there. When you come to John 15:2, Jesus says, "Every branch in me that bears fruit, he cleans, that it might bring forth more fruit." And then in the next verse, he says, "You are already clean through the word which I've spoken to you." So Jesus is saying here that as believers, it's not that we have to get our feet washed literally on Sundays when we meet at church. Some churches actually practice ritual foot washing as part of their services. No, Jesus says, you are clean through the word which I have spoken to you. So it's Jesus' whole act in chapters 13, 14, 15, and 16, which cleans his disciples and teaches them and prunes them, if you like. But prunes is not the word. The word is cleans, but that doesn't sound very sensible on a grapevine. So everyone translates it according to the wisdom given unto him and ignores the word that Jesus actually said. Now, that's not very good. If you want to invent a better word than Jesus used for it, go for it. But you need to let everybody know in the margin that Jesus actually uses the word cleanse here. So having the Greek, you can see these connections if you're still thinking back to chapter 13, and even if you're looking at chapter 15, verses 2 and 3, you can see the connection. And the thought flow is very important because it explains and unpacks what happened before. So there's enough of me commentating. Any questions or thoughts on that?
I do have one, and that's regarding whether there's any other option for prune in Greek. Like, if I think it helps a lot if we know what are the all the options for translation of a certain Greek word, and if Jesus purposely chose this clean word over another more normal, I guess, what's a prune word, then that would tell a lot, right?
Yeah. So let's have a look on BibleWorks. This isn't going to work, but in the Old Testament, dear, I honestly don't know of any Greek words for prune, and there probably are some, but my Greek dictionaries all work the opposite way. They don't start with English words and give you a Greek word. They just bring up the opposite way. So let's try typing prune into the Bible and see if we get any words in the Old Testament. So here is in Leviticus 25 verse 3. Sorry, I'll just show this to you so you can see what I'm doing.
I'll be Hebrew.
So here on the left is the word prune in the New King James anywhere in the Bible. And the first one is Leviticus 25, neither shall you prune your vineyard. Now, this gives me the Greek up the top here, the Greek translation, and then the Hebrew. So it says 6 years you will sow your field, and 6 years, don't know what that word is in Greek, you will something your vineyard, and you shall gather together the fruit of it. So prune in Hebrew is zamar, and the translation of that Hebrew word zamar to prune is temo. So let me see what some of my, it's temno is just the Greek word to cut, okay? And so there are lots of words in the New Testament that are based on temno. That's not particularly a word for pruning necessarily. Let's see if we get any other different word in Leviticus 25. Temes again, Isaiah. They're spears into pruning hooks. Pruning hooks. Yeah, that's pruning again. I think it's just a sickle in Greek. Pruned, zamar. So, yeah, I don't really know if there. I don't really know if there's any other word other than just temno, which just means to cut. Can't see any others. So, yeah, it's just in Greek. It's just the word cleanse here that Jesus uses. All right. So let's keep on going, Jake, in the second paragraph here.
Yep. While we're on John 15, let's look at the range of meaning of the word abide, meno, which is used 11 times in the chapter. The word can be understood to mean to remain, for example, John 1:32 to 33, of the Holy Spirit resting upon him at his baptism, or stay, as in John 1:38 to 39, where the disciples ask where he's living, or dwell, as in John 5:38, where Jesus said the Jews did not have God's word abiding or dwelling in them, or continue, as in John 6:27, the food that endures to eternal life. What does it mean to abide in Christ? It firstly means not to abandon him like Judas did in John 13, but to continue in the faith. It secondly means to dwell in Christ, just like the disciples spent the day with him in John 1:39, having fellowship with him. And then thirdly, abiding in Christ means keeping his words. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, John 15:10, i.e. obeying him.
Okay, now those three definitions I've given down the bottom are not really definitions, they're practical applications. Okay, so this word meno, we get our English word remain from it, meno, and oftentimes it can just be translated remain, but sometimes it's translated abide, like as in someone living in a house and staying. So yeah, it has a range of meanings, and in some contexts, like John 15, abiding in Christ is like this branch remaining in the vine, living in the vine, like a person staying at a house and having fellowship with them and so there's all sorts of spiritual application spin-offs that come out of it. Okay. All right, let's move on and have a look at another example. John, if you want to do this one about the word salvation in Philippians chapter 1.
Yep. Okay. Philippians chapter 1 verse 19 is a puzzling verse. For I know that this will turn out for my deliverance through your prayer and the supply of the Spirit of Jesus Christ. There is no logical reason why people preaching the gospel out of envy might lead to Paul's release from the prison, nor why the supply of the Spirit of Jesus Christ might also be involved in this. But if we look at the Greek behind this verse, we see two important things. Firstly, the word for deliverance is soteria, salvation. Secondly, there is a curious construction at the beginning of the verse. Oiga, gar, hoti, what is it, hoti? Yep, hoti, oh, okay. Literally means, for I know that this to me will turn out for. The word me is not connected with salvation or deliverance at all. What does this to me refer to? Two other times in this chapter we read the same words in Greek, this to me. In verse 12 we have, but I want you to know, brethren, that the things which happened to me, ta kai eme, have actually turned out for the furtherance of the gospel. Then in verse 22 we have, but if I live on in the flesh, this to me, tuto moi, will mean fruitful labor. Italics used for words not in Greek. This to me is referring to Paul's imprisonment. And the whole point of this chapter is to assure the Philippians that his imprisonment in Rome hasn't been something to get upset about. It is producing fruit in salvation as others preach the gospel. This is what verse 19 is saying. This, to me, the imprisonment, will turn out for salvation of sinners through your prayer and the supply of the Spirit of Jesus Christ and the preaching of the gospel by others in Rome as well. Salvation is a result of, firstly, preaching, secondly, praying, and thirdly, the supply of God's Spirit, His convicting work in people's lives.
Okay, now, I don't think there's one commentator in the world who agrees with me here. I've never seen someone say this. So I'm probably wrong, but the sort of standard explanations of the verse are just bizarre. Why should Paul getting out of prison be linked with people preaching the gospel in Rome? Well, maybe the whole city will become Christian and he might get set free, but it doesn't seem to be that's on Paul's mind. This word deliverance here, I know that this will turn out for my deliverance. It could be meaning him going to heaven or him getting set free from prison. But yeah, him going to heaven might be more realistic in the sense that people preaching might make the Romans so angry that they kill Paul. But it's just the word salvation. And he's not talking about my deliverance here. You can see this from the order of the words in Greek. I know that this to me will turn out for salvation. So that's my suggestion for what that verse is actually talking about. The whole of Philippians chapter 1 is talking about the advance and also the defense of the gospel. And Paul is rejoicing in his imprisonment because it's leading to others being stirred up to preach the gospel. And through people preaching the gospel, well, salvation is the result. Through your prayers, says Paul, through the supply of God's Spirit, people get saved. So I think we should just translate the word soteria there the way we translate it in virtually every other passage in the New Testament as salvation. But what would I know? The commentators say otherwise. All right, so let's come to one last example. Now, these are examples of words that are slightly ambiguous in Greek. Do you see what I'm meaning? Abide or meno, you could take it different ways. You need to be aware of the different shades of meaning. Soteria could possibly mean deliverance, or could possibly mean salvation in a spiritual salvation sense, or it could mean being set free from prison. Here is an interesting verse where different Bibles go different ways. I'll get you to read this one for me, please, Jake. Comprehend or overcome in John 1:5.
Yep. In John 1:5, we read, "And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it." NKJV, KJV, and ASB. Alternatively, the NIV, ESV, and NLT translate the last expression as "did not overcome it." The reason for these different translations is simple. The Greek word katalaubano, used here can mean either overcome or comprehend. For an example of comprehend, say Ephesians 3:18, that you may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the width and length and depth and height, and to know the love of Christ. For other examples, see perceived, realized, understand in Acts 4:13 or 10:34, and found in Acts 25:25. But examples of overcome are also found in the New Testament, and particularly significant is the reference to John 12:35, where Jesus says, "A little while longer the light is with you. Walk while you have the light, lest darkness overtake you." NKJ. This verse is probably the reason why the NIV, ESV, and NLT translate John 1:5 in the same way. But there are other New Testament references that are best translated with overtake, such as Romans 9:30 and 1 Thessalonians 5:4. So, with the evidence evenly divided, how should we decide how to translate John 1:5? I suggest the solution is seen in the immediate context of John 1 verse 5, and particularly in the way in which the Laubano word group is found 20 times? XX times?
Yeah, sorry. It's 4 times the correct answer there. So
oh, right. So
I've amended the file on screen, but I haven't. The one I sent to you from last week, I'd forgotten to fill in the statistical information. So yeah,
four.
No, it's
4
times.
Right. Thus, in verse 11, we read, "He came to his own, and his own did not receive him." And the word "receive" here is paralubano, to take alongside with. Then verse 12 says, "But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God." And the word "received" here is laubano, to take or receive. Verse 16 also uses laubano as received. Even more significant is the way that John 1 4 times talks about different people that did not know Christ. Thus, verse 10 says, "He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him." It uses ginosko here. Similarly, in verses 26, 31, and 33, John speaks about different people who did not know who Christ really was, even though standing amongst them. He uses a different word for know, eido. All this links up to present one of the primary lessons of John 1. Have you realized who Jesus really is? It is in this context, I suggest, that John is using katalubano in John 1 verse 5. The darkness did not comprehend who Jesus the light truly was. By contrast, there is no contextual theme of Jesus the light being overcome by his enemies in John 1. Thus, context ultimately helps us decide which way to translate here. By the way, you will only notice such connections if you are regularly reading your New Testament in Greek, which is, I remind you, the aim of this course.
So here we have the Greek word group based on lambano. That's Lambano there, Jake. So there's katalambano, there's paralambano, and just the plain old lambano. And they're translated in John chapter 1. Katalambano could mean comprehend, to take on board. Lambano means to take, basically. And katalambano could be translated to take on board. In other words, you understand it. Or it could be translated to take down, as in overcome something. But the other verses just around a bit, we read about people, he was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world did not know him. And then it goes on to say he came to his own did not receive him. They didn't take him, literally lambano. And as many as received him, as many as did take him, they became the children of God. And we have this repetition of this lambano root all through this paragraph. And it's being used in the same sense all the way through, I think. The sense of the person of Jesus, who is truly God, the one who made the world, coming into the world, and the world didn't recognize who he is. They didn't receive him. They didn't know who he was. But as many as did receive him, he gave the right to become the children of God. So verse 5, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not. Well, verse 10 says the darkness did not know. He was in the world was made by him, the world did not know him. I think that is the sense in which this whole paragraph is talking about. We haven't yet got to this point in John's gospel where there's conflict between Jesus and the Pharisees. So therefore, verse 5, it doesn't seem to be about conflict. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness could not defeat it. That doesn't seem to be really the point yet of John's Gospel. But it's a line ball decision in terms of the lexical evidence. The evidence of the way this one word is used in the New Testament is evenly split. And so we can't look to other places to say, okay, it's more likely to be this usage of the word than that. We have to look at the context. And the amazing thing is, this is what I got excited about last week. You have all those Lambano group words through the rest of this passage, and they're all talking about people receiving or taking Jesus on, believing in him, knowing and working out who he is. But the majority of people, they don't. He came into the world was made by him, and the world did not know him. And John 4 times through the passage is saying, I do not know him. You don't know him. He has come, and in the darkness, people don't realize who he is. So that's my suggestion there. Now, these are all Andrew's suggestions, all these words we've looked at in this passage and through these passages. So I'm not saying this is the truth, the final and absolute gospel truth, but I'm just saying when you're looking at the Greek, you're seeing words that sometimes are ambiguous, and you have to look at the context and other usages of those words in the New Testament. And this makes Bible study incredibly exciting when you pick up on some of these trails, particularly in the context. And in our English Bible, we would not have the faintest clue that there is virtually the same word in John chapter 1, verse 5, comprehend, as with John chapter 1, verse 11, receive, and John chapter 1, verse 12, receive. But it's virtually exactly the same word, the Catalambano group. Okay, any questions from any of that? I don't know if this makes you excited about studying the Bible in Greek, but you actually do go jumping up and down for joy when you see some of these things in the Greek New Testament. And your English Bible doesn't give you anywhere near these amount of clues.
No, it's definitely exciting. Yeah.
Okay, now let us move on. Tonight, we're going to start looking at adjectives. And adjectives are really, really good in Greek because they basically have exactly the same endings as the nouns and the pronouns that they go with. So unfortunately, there was a point in time at which Emmaus Bible College in Sydney had a free Greek course up, and I was doing their Hebrew course at the time, so I just downloaded lots of their PDFs, and sometimes I can't be bothered to write out my own notes again. I just feed you their notes, and they're probably actually much more dependable than my notes anyway. So they're a bit more complex and technical in this case here. So I'll get you guys to read some of this because I strain my voice too much on Monday nights getting excited about some of these Bible truths. So John, would you mind starting us on this formation of adjectives?
Yep. So formation of adjectives. Definition of adjectives is a word or phrase that of naming an attribute, for example, quality or feature of a noun, or added to a noun, or grammatically related to a noun to modify or describe it. Some of the examples in English is that large bird. In the large bird, the adjective large names a feature of the bird about its large size. Wonderful view, the adjective wonderful names a feature of the view. It inspires wonder. And in Greek, we can look at Matthew chapter 12.
Don't worry about reading out the Greek. Don't worry about reading out the Greek. You can just flick your eyes across that, but read out the English translation.
Yep. So the good man from the good treasure brings forth good things. The second one is, and the evil man from the evil treasure brings forth evil things.
Okay, good. Now, here is the adjective in the singular. Here is the adjective good, agathos. Okay, so you remember your old Aunt Agatha. Well, she got her name from Greek, and her parents called her good. Okay, but you remember in Greek we have the noun, the masculine. We've got logos, logon, logou, logo. You can see the endings on Agatha here follow exactly the same for the masculine. Logos, agathos, logon, agathon, logou, agathu, logo, agatho. And it's the same for the feminine adjective. If the noun you're attaching to an adjective is feminine, well, for example, a feminine noun would be archi, beginning. Archi, archine, archis, archi. And the adjective follows precisely. And let's say a neuter noun like ergon, it goes ergon, ergon, ergu, ergo. And then we have the plural forms of them over at the right-hand side. Agathoi, so we had logoi, logus, logon, logois. And here agathoi, agathus, agathon, agathois. And the feminine archi in the plural is archai, archas, archon, archais. And erga in the neuter, erga, erga, ergon, ergois. And the wonderful thing about adjectives is that you're actually not learning anything new here in terms of grammar. The exact same endings you've already learned for your masculine, feminine, and neuter nouns. All you're doing now is adding to your vocabulary with new adjectives like good, bad, big, small, etc., etc., etc. So this is a really good lesson for reinforcing and reminding and drilling down and just training ourselves in the masculine, feminine, and neuter nouns, because they take very regularly the exact same endings when you have an adjective. Now, we are not going to let's just read these formation notes. The endings of the adjective correspond at many points to those of the definite article, the. Feminine singular adjectives with vowel or row stems ending will have a in the place of e in the above paradigm. For example, here is an adjective, holy, hagios. And because it's got an adjective in its stem at the end of the stem, it, instead of agien, say, you can see me scrolling over agathane, because it's got the vowel, it becomes agihan, and agias instead of agiis, and agia instead of agii. You can hear me even saying it, that it doesn't sound good to just have the eta endings on the adjective if the adjective ends in a vowel. So just like there are some feminine nouns that the stem ends in a vowel and we don't have the e endings. For example, we had the noun hemera, which means day. It's a feminine noun, but it doesn't end in e, it ends in a. And its endings go hemera, hemeran, hemeras, hemera. It ends in a. So there are some feminine nouns which don't end in e, they end in a. And they're adjectives. If you've got a feminine adjective and it ends in a vowel, it also uses the letter alpha instead of the letter eta. That's all he's saying there. Now that's a bit confusing. I'm sorry to have to. This guy doesn't set things out very nicely. But anyway, if you remember back to your, and you can flick back to your feminine nouns, you remember that there are two sorts there. The ones that the stem ends in a consonant, they are like this, agathe. And then you've got the ones that the stem ends in a vowel or row. They are like this. And the adjectives follow the pattern. Okay, we are going to completely ignore the adjectives polis and megas because they are not fitting in the pattern. Okay, how do we use adjectives then? This is a little bit complicated, but you should be able to understand it. Let's go through this. Jake, would you mind reading this paragraph?
Oh, sorry, was muted there. From attributive adjective.
Yeah.
Yep. In this use, the adjective modifies the meaning of a noun or pronoun in the sentence. The adjective plus noun or pronoun do not form a sentence, i.e., do not predicate something. So,
Yeah, keep on going.
Oh, yeah. Ho agothos, anthropos, sorry, the good man. There is no verbal element to predicate something about the good man. 2. If an attributive adjective is removed from a sentence, the sentence will still express a complete thought. Is EX example? Is that what it means?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so.
We see the beautiful earth, or we see the earth. 3. An adjective agrees with the noun in gender, case, and number. So example, ho agathos, masculine nominative singular, anthropos, masculine nominative singular. Another example, to agathu, masculine genitive singular, and thesauron, masculine genitive singular.
Yeah, so that's the word thesaurus. We haven't learnt that yet. It's the word we get thesaurus from in English. And a thesauros is a treasure. So a treasury. But anyway, the point here is not to learn these words. It's just to notice the way that the adjective follows exactly the endings of the noun that's attached to the good treasure. He should have just gone with anthropou again there, not to confuse us and make me go off on tangents about the meaning of Greek words.
But we learned another word, so. Number 4. An adjective may appear before or after the noun or pronoun that it modifies. Example, agathos anthropos, good man, or anthropos agathos, good man.
Now that is very, very important. The Greek word order does not need to stay fixed. You can put it before or after, it still means the same thing. And this is going to start getting even more interesting as we look at a number more examples as we keep on going. So keep on going, Jake.
Nice. And number 5, if the adjective precedes the noun or pronoun that it modifies, only one article is used. If the adjective follows the noun or pronoun that it modifies, the article is repeated before the adjective. So, for example, ho agathos anthropos, or ho anthropos ho agathos.
Okay, both of those two expressions mean the good man. But in Greek, you're saying the man, the good, or the good man. Now, this actually becomes quite significant with an interesting rule. Remember, a week or so ago, I was talking about John chapter 1, verse 1. The word was God, and you can drop out the article the in Greek in some sense, and it still refers to the God. Anyway, we will see that there's interesting usages of the article that are tied in with this. So thanks, Jake. That's the attributive use. When a adjective is being used to give more information about the noun, and it's placed right next to it, either before it or after it. So predicative, secondly, use. Would you mind reading this one out, John? This is slightly different.
Okay, so predicative adjective. In this use, the adjective functions as a predicate to complete the meaning of a sentence. So, number 1, predicative adjectives are never immediately preceded by the article.
Okay, let's stop a second. This guy's really confusing here. Before we read this stuff, go down to example A. Here is a predicative use, and you'll see what he means by looking at this one here, okay? See example A down below there. Read that line out, John.
For A, right?
Yeah.
Honomos. Is that right?
Keep on going.
The one. Yeah. So honomos. Estin. Hagios. Is it
Hagios.
Hagios? Can't see it.
And it means
Yeah, Hagios. Yeah. The law is
And-
holy.
the law
It's
is
holy.
holy. Now you see here that the adjective functions as a predicate to complete the meaning of a sentence. So a predicate in grammar is everything else that is following the main subject of the sentence. So here the subject is the law. The predicate is everything else in the sentence. Is holy. And if you take out that word holy there, the sentence falls apart. It is part of what, and the difference is we've got a verb here in this sentence, okay? So having explained, tried to explain a little bit, now let's go through these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 up the top.
So number 2, predicative adjectives are always in the nominative case. So number 3, if a predicative adjective is removed from a sentence, it will not express a complete sentence.
It will not express a
complete thought. Yep. So the example is the law is holy. If you take the holy out, it's incomplete. And 4, predicative adjectives can come before the verb AB, or in examples AB, or after the verb in examples CD. Number 5, the verb to be is often omitted in a sentence that has a predicative adjective. See example EF. In this case, the adjective will be in a predicative position, i.e. after the subject. The example here is good man.
Okay, so this is getting quite complex in the way he's explaining it. It's actually quite simple in when you think about it. An attributive adjective is when you stick the adjective right next to the noun, but a predicative adjective, you've got the verb between it. So the law is holy. Or in Greek, we're going to see you can do it a variety of ways. So let's just go down through these examples, A, B, C, D, and F, D, E, and F. And in E and F, they leave out the verb altogether, and it still has the same meaning. So just read through these sentences, A, B, C, D, and F, straight across there, John.
So A, ho nomos estin hagios. The law is holy. Nomos estin hagios. A law is holy. Hagios estin ho nomos. The law is holy. Hagios estin nomos. A law is holy. Ho nomos hagios. The law is holy. Nomos hagios. A law is holy.
Okay, now have a look at E. Example E. Can you spot what is going on in E that that is different to what we looked at before in the attributive adjectives? I'll tell you the answer because it's a bit, you probably won't spot it until I point it out. But you remember up in the example before, we said the good man could be written ho agathos anthropos, or it could be written ho anthropos ho agathos. In other words, the good man or the man the good. But you notice E here, because you can drop out estin in Greek, and the verbs drop out quite a bit. This verb is drops out quite a lot, and in Hebrew too. Look at this form of the sentence here. It cannot be the good law, the holy law. That would have to be honomos ho hagios. It would have to have ho in there, because that's the way that the attributive functions. The attributive, if you're going to say the holy law, you've got to say ho hagios nomos, or you've got to say ho nomos ho hagios. This drops out the ho here, and this tells you that it's actually a predicative usage of the adjective. It's making a full sentence. And the one in F is actually ambiguous. It could be either. It could be a law that is holy, because attributive adjectives can come before or after, or it could be Eston in the middle of it and it's just dropped out. So coming back up here, do you remember he said here that you can have agathos anthropos, or you can have anthropos agathos. You can switch the words around, and it still means, and it still could be attributive. You're just talking about a good man. But down here, this one in F, you've just got the two words there. So it could be either a predicative or an attributive case, a holy law, or it could be saying the law or a law is holy. Okay, so I hope you're understanding a little bit of the difference between an attributive adjective, when you're just whacking another word on straight after or straight before the noun to give you a bit more explanation and description, or the predicative use of an adjective is when it's completing a sentence. Today was beautiful. And you've got a full sentence there. Okay, or Saturday was beautiful. That's a predicative. You've got a full sentence in there. All right, now he goes into a third use of adjectives, and that is as substantives. And this is worth learning about too. So, Jake, we'll go for you again on this.
Yep.
Here's the third way that adjectives are used. And I hope this doesn't fry your brains too much. It's just very interesting. It's the same as is true of English, okay, for all of this. And we just never think about it. We just speak and use English without knowing about these three different ways that adjectives can be used.
So, substantive adjective. In this use, the adjective functions as a noun. And number one, Greek adjectives can function as nouns, as in English. Only the good die young. Adjectives that function as nouns have the article, but do not have a noun to modify. The adjective can appear in any gender, case, or number. And the gender of the adjective indicates whether it refers to a male, masculine, female, feminine, or thing, neuter. When referring to people in general, the masculine gender is used. So, ho agathos. Is this saying it could mean either the good man or the good people?
Yeah, so the word, that's not a very clear example, but because we think of people as the plural of man, but let's just go with a there. Ho agathos, it could just mean the good man, because it's masculine, agathos, it's not feminine, agathe, and it's not neuter, it's masculine. So let's just stick with A. We'll forget B. Go down to C.
Yep, so he Kali.
Yep, now he is feminine, the feminine article. Kali is a new adjective we haven't learned yet, which means beautiful or good. And it's in the feminine, Kali. So it's talking about a female. But it doesn't put in the word woman in there, just like A doesn't put in agathos anthropos. But you come to examples D and E, and you see even more clearly how adjectives can be used as nouns. D is tahagia, the holy things, neuter plural. And E is the clearest one of all. We speak about the dead all the time. Blessed are the dead who died for their country. Well, we're talking about dead people, but we never put the word people in the sentence. We just speak about the dead. The cemetery is full of the dead. Okay, so we do this in English too. So there's the bottom line of all of this. You've just learned something about how you speak in English, and you never knew that you spoke in English in these three different ways you used adjectives. And guess what? You don't need to anymore in the rest of your life remember attributive, predicative, and substantive uses of adjectives, because you just need to learn the adjectives and you can just ignore the three grammatical terms, just the way you've done it the whole life you've spoken English, okay? All right. So here's Matthew 5:8, another example. Blessed makarioi, hoi katharoi, the clean. Remember we were talking about katharos in John 15, cleaning and pruning. Blessed the pure. And they haven't put in the verb here, the verb to be. Blessed are the pure. The pure what? The pure people. It's hoi, masculine, and it's plural. Okay, so let's do this too. I don't know what the value of this is yet, but let's read it through. John, if you wouldn't mind doing 5-7 for us, please.
Yep. Word order in Greek sentences. Number 1, words at the beginning of a sentence are in greater focus than the words following. In longer sentences, the final word is often in greater focus.
Okay, let me just stop there
Noun.
let me just stop there and explain that. We've seen that Greek word order is very flexible. And what he is saying in this sentence is actually really, really important. And that is, how do you emphasize a word in Greek? Well, you can't put it in different font style, okay? What you do is you drag it to the very beginning of a sentence to emphasize it. Or if you want, in longer sentences, you can drag it to the very final word. And that provides emphasis. And this is one of the beauties of Greek, that you emphasize certain thoughts in a sentence by dragging them to the very beginning or dragging to the very end. I don't know why he's put this little note in here, but it's useful to know. Okay, so let's keep on going.
So noun sandwich constructions. Number 2, genitive constructions and prepositional phrases can be sandwiched in between an article and a noun, which they modify. This word order doesn't alter the meaning of the noun construction. Number 3, if two articles appear together, as in example B, or if an article is followed by a preposition in example D, this is a signal of the sandwich construction.
Okay, so let's see if we can pick the easiest one of these first. Example A is just a normal sentence. Blepo, I see, tohieron, the temple, to Kyriou, of the Lord. But look at how B switches things around and it still means the same thing. Blepo, to Kyriou, hieron. Now, this is very similar to in English. We can say the temple of God, or we can say God's temple. You see what we've done there in English? Same meaning, exactly the same meaning, but we've switched our words around and we are saying the same thing a slightly different way. They do that in Greek too. So you can see blepo, to hieron, and then they've sandwiched inside it the genitive, like we say God's temple in English. They have done that by putting to Kyriou, the genitive of the Lord, in the middle. So literally it is, I see the of the Lord temple, or I see the Lord's temple, instead of I see the temple of the Lord. Okay, and C and D are a slightly different case, not with adjectives, but with prepositional phrases. So this section here, 5.7, isn't technically strictly about adjectives. It's just Greek word order and how you can switch some things around. Okay, so adjectives are often associated with the verb to be, and we've seen some of the forms of the verb to be. We've seen Amy, which means I am, and we've seen Eston, which means he is. Here are the rest of these forms for your information purposes. You don't need to learn them today at all. All right, so here's a good little thing to notice. I have mentioned this once or twice before when we've been doing some class reading exercise, but who are we up to in reading? I'll get you to read some of this out. John, you can keep on reading here, please.
Yep. So 5.8, special uses of Amy, preparatory use. So if the third person forms of Amy appear at the beginning of the sentence, it will mean there is, as in, or there are, as in. Example A is, do we read the Greek as well?
Yep.
Hotouphlos, as in, and K, synagogue.
Okay. So
the blind man is in
hotiflos,
a synagogue. Yep.
hotiflos here is a substantive use of an adjective. It's not putting in hotiflos anthropos. It just says the blind. But we know because of the endings here, it's singular and masculine. The blind man. Esten in the synagogue. Dative case. Now look what happens. You can say this same sentence by sticking Esten out the front. And when we've seen this in the class reading in Greek, we've struggled to read it. He is blind in the synagogue. But look at the way we translate that in Greek. There is a blind man in the synagogue. And we could just get this from here. A blind man is in the synagogue. So sometimes in English, we stick in there is at the front of a sentence. And in Greek, they never do that. They just keep the same words and they maybe shuffle the order around sometimes. And it makes it hard for us to pick out how to translate it, because we are normally used to starting off with the subject of the sentence first, and then the verb, and then the direct object, and then genitives maybe. So here's another one. Hoi tifloi, the blind men, no men in there, just the adjective. They are eisen in the temple, not the synagogue. Eisen, there are blind men in the temple. Do you see what he's doing here? He is just showing the way the Greek word order is flexible. And sometimes in English, we compensate for this by sticking the word there at the front. Okay, let's see where we're up to. We want to finish this whole jolly thing. Special uses of Amy. Let's read this out, Jake, if you don't mind.
Yep. As we saw above, when those symbols are indicated, adjectives can be used as predicates, called complements, with or without the to be verb, Amy, and may come before or after the verb or subject, as in A and B. Do you want to look at that before we move on?
No, let's just keep on going.
All right. Nouns can also function as complements in sentences with Amy, as in C. Both the subject and complement will be in the nominative case. And if the complement comes before the verb, it cannot take the article, as in D.
All right. Now, we were talking about John 1:1 a few weeks ago. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We are getting very, very close to understanding that verse from this little bit here. But just to go through it very quickly, we've got 4 or 5 or 6 sentences here. In fact, F is John chapter 1, verse 1. Or Jake's device has dropped out here for a second. Can you hear us, Jake? Can you hear again, Jake? Can you hear Jake? Are you hearing? Can you hear us, Jake? Are you there, Jake? No, not yet. Anyway, we'll go through these. It's pretty it's pretty. We're going to be coming back to this stuff about John chapter 1, verse 1 in a few weeks' time anyway, as I said when we were talking about it. So, honomos est in hagios, the law is holy. Hagios est in honomos, holy is the law. But look at this, you can do this with other nouns as well, and that noun is a complement of the first noun. Ho huios est in ho kyrios. The Son is the Lord. And notice what happens in number D. If the complement comes before the verb, it cannot take the article. And we'll talk about this again, but what dropping the article off Kyrios is doing here is it's showing us that it's not the subject, it is the complement. Kyrios est in ho huios, the Son is Lord. So we have two examples down here from the New Testament. All right, that's enough of all of this complex word order shenanigans, which we do in English without thinking about it, okay? And in Greek, you can do the same. The way we use these adjectives in 3 different ways, exactly the same as in English. But we don't need to know the words for it. All right, let's stop sharing that for a second and we'll wait for Jake to hop on. Jake's just messaged me saying he's trying to get back on. So we'll wait for him for a second. I don't think he's getting very good internet. At the moment, he can't even send this. He's typing something on his messenger, but it's still not coming through. Hmm. Saying it can't detect his device. Then he gets a message saying something went wrong. In my experience, sometimes it's it's not picking up the microphone for some reason, but that might just be an error. That's an error message that's not really correctly diagnosing the problem. He's typing some more, and if you can't get on now, I think we'll just keep on going and tell Jake to look on the recording from 1 minute 8. I'll tell him we're keeping on going. And he can view the recording later in the week. From 1 hour 8 minutes onwards. We are okay. There we go. All right, so what we're going to do now is just go through the vocabulary for this week. And these are all adjectives. So these are all new words. These are adjectives. In primary school, sometimes now they call them modifiers because they modify a noun. So very briefly, agathos means good. Hagios, with a rough breathing on the front of it, is holy, and it's useful to remember that hagios and holy, they've both got an H sound on the front of it. So hagiography means hagiography means a life of one of the saints. A biography of a saint, a holy one. Okay. Heteros means other. Heterodoxy means the opposite of orthodoxy. It means false, other than what is truth. Although doxy doesn't really mean truth, but anyway. Idios means one's own. That's the best way to translate it every single time. In English, it's 2 words. In Greek, it's 1. We speak about an idiosyncrasy. An idiosyncrasy is someone's personal little behavioral tick, or I don't know, something like that. A Judaios is actually an adjective. It means a Jewish person, a Jew. And we have the adjective, the Judean countryside, Judaios, Judeos. Kalos means beautiful or good. We have calligraphy, which means a style of beautiful writing. Makarios means blessed or happy. There are usually a Greek Orthodox patriarch called Father Macarius or whatever, Bishop Makarios, blessed. Monos means only. When I was at school, there used to be some boys and they used to pay them out for having a monobrow. Monos, they only had one. A monologue is someone speaking on their own. Necros means dead. A necropolis is a cemetery, a city of the dead. Hosos is a hard one to remember. It means as many as or as much as. It's a quantitative adjective. And that's the best way to translate it, as many as. Poniros means evil or wicked. It's the opposite of agathos. Now we have these two adjectives, megas and polis. They do not have the same endings as all the rest of them. All the rest of these ones before us all have the same standard endings. These two don't. And you don't need to worry about their endings. Just ignore them. Just try and remember that mega means large or big. See if you can find don't worry about what the endings are. Just try and find the mega in the word. And same with polys. Like we have polytheism, we have polymers. This is the word we get poly from. It's the Greek, and you can translate the upsilon sound almost as a Y. When my uncle was was at work, he used to first of all work at a polytechnic in the UK, which is a sort of TAFE college, slightly more glorified than a TAFE college. He used to teach philosophy at the polytechnic. Polytechnic means many trades. Poly. And then we have two more conjunctions. Ala means but, very strong contrastive word, and hos means as or like. It's the word for like, as in he was tall like a tree. Okay, it doesn't mean he likes something. That's a verb. So there are some adjectives. Any questions about any of those adjectives?
All good.
Okay. All right. Let's finish off tonight doing some class reading in Matthew 12. Now, in this class reading, I have stuck some English words in there because you don't know the Greek words that are behind this. So you've just got to, when you come to one of these English words in brackets, just say the English word and keep on going. All right, have a go, John. And yes, you might need to know some of these vocabulary adjectives we've just gone through.
Okay. We just open it up for needed. All right. And the first one will be, and whoever speaks the word.
Word.
Logon.
Word, not the word.
Oh yeah, word. Speaks word according to the Son of the Man, it will be forgiven.
Okay, so kata, it will be forgiven to him.
To him. Yep.
It's dative.
Singular. Yeah.
So, and whoever speaks a word, kata tu huiu tu anthropu. Kata, what does kata mean?
According to against.
Against. Here it's against because it's the genitive that follows. Whoever speaks a word against the Son of Man, it will be forgiven to him. Very good. Number 2.
Whoever speak word.
A word.
word a word against. Oh wait, is it against?
Yep.
That's genitive and accusative and genitive. Yep, cool. Against the let's see. Pneumatos.
Have a guess.
If I come across
Have a guess. Pneumatos.
pneumatos. Pneuma.
I don't think you've had this vocab word yet. It's the word spirit.
Okay. Yep.
I don't think I've given it.
Yep. So, but whoever speak a word against the spirit of the Holy, the Holy Spirit,
Yes.
it will not be forgiven. To him.
To him. Excellent. Well done. So yes, sorry, I don't think I've given you the word spirit in vocab yet. There it is.
Yep.
It's the word pneuma. And we get our word pneumatic tires from it. Pneumatic, pneumatic, full of air, spirit. Okay. Number 3.
There be you plural do.
Yes.
The dendron. I don't think we've come across that either.
No. Okay, it's the word tree.
Okay. Tree.
We didn't have that on a previous. Let's see if we can see whether we had that on dendron. What would that have been? That would have been maybe lesson 7. No, 6 maybe. I don't know. Dendron. So let's just forget about it and move on. Dendron means tree.
Yeah, you do the tree, beautiful tree, to the beautiful tree, and the carpon, another new word, I think.
I'm sure we've had this one. Carpos.
Nope, doesn't ring a bell.
Fruit.
Pretty sure we haven't come across that. No.
Okay.
Carpos. Okay.
So, tree is dendron. Carpon is fruit.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So
fruit.
Go for this. Go for translating this sentence then.
Yeah. You do to the beautiful tree and the fruit, the beautiful fruit of his.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not
sure what does that mean.
Okay, so remember poio can mean do, or it could
Make.
also mean make. So it's probably better here. Jesus is saying, you make the tree good and the fruit of it, carpon, altu, the fruit of it, will be good too. And the fruit good. Okay. Or beautiful. But Kalon has the normal translation of it is just good. But we try and distinguish it from agathos by saying it also means sort of aesthetically good, whereas agathos is more morally or intrinsically good.
Okay.
Okay, and then we have the opposite in question 4.
Okay. Yeah, it will be you make the poniron.
This is one of our new vocab items tonight.
Oh, poniron.
Poniros.
Evil. Okay.
Evil.
Wicked. Yeah. You make the tree evil and the fruit of it evil.
Very good. Okay, number 5.
Gar.
So gar is going to be the
4.
Yes, so that's going to be the first word in our English sentence, but they usually put it second. So 4.
Out of 4 out of the was it the fruit?
Yes.
Just now. Yep. For out of the fruit, the tree. This word
Ginos-
ginoscete.
No.
Nope. No idea.
Ginosko? It's the word know, as in K-N-O-W.
Okay.
So ginosko, we have
Yep.
the K in our English word no because of this G at the front here. Ginosko is the Greek word
okay.
for know. So that was probably in lesson 2 or 3, I think.
Yep.
So
Yep.
for from the
So
fruit of
yep.
the tree.
Yep. You know it.
Yes. Or literally, by the fruits of the tree you will know it.
Yep.
But it's more literally, from the fruits of the tree you will know it. But here we've just got it in the present tense. In the fruits of the tree you know it. Okay. Number 6. Try and pronounce this Greek word here.
Which Greek word?
Well,
The
there's only 3 of them in the sentence.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So offspring echidnone.
Echidnone.
Echidnone. Yep. Echidnone. Post Agatha Poneroy.
Yep.
Okay.
So what do you think echidnone refers to?
It would be something half.
So in Australia we have an animal called the echidna. This is exactly the same word, but it's not referring to an echidna or a porcupine. This is a word for some sort of snake in Greek.
Interesting.
Offspring of
Snakes.
snakes, I think, is echidna.
Okay. Offspring of snakes. How are you able to speak good? Good being wicked. Okay.
Yes. Now this is Agatha is what? It's good, but what is the ending of it telling you?
Yeah. It might be neutral plural.
Yes, it is. Very good. So how would we translate that?
So it'd be good things. How
Correct.
are you able to speak good things being hoi? This is wicked men.
Yes.
People.
Yeah. How are you able to speak good things being evil people? So yeah, the word echidna, brood of vipers, offspring of vipers, says lots of our English translations. Yeah. Okay. And number 7. This one is maybe a little bit easier. We've got this word thesauru, which we learned, we saw in one of his Mr. Emmaus's course notes there. He shouldn't have put that in because no one knows what it means.
Treasure.
It means treasure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Ho agathos. So it'll be the good plural. So the good man. Oh wait, another man. The good man out of the good treasure.
Yes.
Ekbale is cast out.
Yes. Or in this case, just brings out.
Okay. Yeah, that's very different. Brings out good things.
Yes, excellent. The good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings out good things. And lastly, question 8 is the opposite of that.
And the wicked man out of the wicked treasure.
Or the evil.
Yeah. Oh, of the The evil. Yeah. Okay. The treasure of the evil.
No,
Of
the
the
evil
evil treasure.
treasure.
Of the evil treasure brings out evil things.
Correct. Excellent. Well done, John. So that's us done for tonight.
Okay.
So adjectives, and there's some homework to do. Now, let me just check what I sent through in terms of the homework on the homework email. Adjectives, reading Matthew 9. Okay, now I think I've sent you through the wrong homework sheet. I think I've basically sent the same class reading
Yeah,
through
it was
as
the
homework.
same.
So
Yep.
I will send you through. I'll send you through another document for homework as well.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Well done, John. And thanks, Jake, as well. So we will see you. I'll send you through some more, a different homework sheet. And I need to get rid of that other one I did send through because it's a confusion. And okay, any questions then about any of that stuff we've done tonight? I hope that's not been too confusing with all that stuff in that Emmaus course notes about word order. But as I say, in English,
Yeah.
we use these adjectives in exactly the same way without ever having learned the grammatical labels that he has put on them. But in Greek, it's interesting because the order of them sometimes tells you whether they are predicative or whether they are attributive. Okay. All right, we'll leave it there for tonight. So thanks, John, and have a great week.
Thank you, Andrew.
I'll end the broadcast now.